What are the tiny triumphs or the large triumphs that you can celebrate just by recognizing it? It doesn't even require a gift, a word, or anything. Just recognizing the triumph is a fantastic way to connect within your families. Hello and welcome to the Encourager Podcast, where we have encouraging conversations to help you joyfully harmonize your home and work life. I'm your host, Rebecca Scott. I'm a wife, mother, designer, coach, and author. I'm here to help encourage and empower you to confidently make decisions that work for you and your stage of life, whatever that might be. Hello, encouragers. On this week's podcast, we're talking about the family system. And this is something that I've been practicing for quite a few years now, and it does make a difference in the closeness of your family when you can recognize these three things. And so at the end of this podcast, I always like that you can apply some of these practical tips, whatever it might be, within about 10 minutes of listening to the podcast. So do listen with the intent of what can I start immediately and implement from what I just heard? Because we all know we're getting inundated with awesome content from many of our favorite creators, but it's also been really challenged over how can you apply it after listening to something rather than just thinking I will do it later. So how can you apply some of the things that we talk about today? So take that 10 minutes afterwards to go, okay, how am I going to apply this? Maybe you don't do it in that 10 minutes, but you plan when you will implement some of the things. I also have a resource that I can give you today that's available on the encouragerwebsite.com. And just a friendly reminder that the cohort is still open for enrollment. If you would like to do all of my 5 simple systems better for your life, I would love to have you be a part of the cohort. It starts on September 3rd. We are still open for enrollment. I can't wait to stand beside you and in 10 weeks really have accomplished a lot and really have dialed in the systems that will work for your unique family. Today, I'm talking about the simple but life-giving act of recognizing effort, triumph, and struggle in yourself and your family. What if one of the most powerful things you could do for your family this week didn't cost a dime, just a little attention and a few words? When we recognize what's happening in our family system, not just the schedule, but the hearts involved, we build peace and connection and trust with one another. This is how we live the legacy we want to leave behind. Remember that I say the family system is about living the legacy that you also want to leave behind. Frequently, we can romanticize the legacy that we want to leave behind, but we don't always practically apply it to what we are living today. So when you think of your family system, you think of what is the legacy I want to leave behind and how can I start living that today? And today's subject will help you dial in your family system so you can, in fact, leave an amazing legacy behind. Number 1, how do we recognize effort? This one is probably the easiest for me to do because I'm a big old cheerleader at heart. Oh my gosh, that was hard and you did it. Let's recognize the effort. And I am raising 1 son and 3 daughters, and I read a lot of books about raising daughters. We need to recognize their effort more than just their looks and that sort of thing. And so I'm always a big proponent in recognizing effort. I have a story I want to tell you about when I was really reflecting on Gus's senior year, and it was stressful. It was fun, but it involved a lot. You're facing so many deadlines and so many decisions. School, which school, all the last minute things of seniors. And I can't express to you enough how frustrating it would be with all the last minute senior things from other families that I was like, no, that's not happening for our family, where it seemed to glorify their last year a little bit more than I was willing to participate in. So it was like a bigger goodie bag for this championship, a bigger mom's night event for this, because this will be the last time of this, the last time of this. And I had to really decipher for myself what Gus's senior year would be, because you can get so wrapped up in everyone else's idea of saying goodbye to their senior that I had to define for myself what that is. And I still haven't completely unpacked it, but I will give anybody who's listening out there right now permission to, before you have a senior, whether that's college or high school, to decide what it looks like for yourself after some prayer and reflection and conversations with your spouse, because it doesn't have to look like every other mom's. That might be their baby, and so there's a little bit more with it. It might be their firstborn. I don't know, but there was a lot of ideas about the senior that I was like, wait. I don't have to do it that way, but I could have very easily gotten caught up in it. So on Gus's senior year, it was a lot of effort. It was a lot of effort to make sure we were filling out the right documents, make sure you'd taken all the tests that I needed to take, make sure that we'd taken the pictures, that we printed the pictures, that we thought through the parties, like all of the things that are wrapped up in that. And what I recognized was not the effort that Gus put in, while it was a lot, and Nick and my effort was a lot too, it was the effort of his sisters that I wanted to recognize. They stood beside us when we cried a lot during games or whatever it might be. And they helped us get ready for things, helped us get ready for the grad party, helped us get ready for, he had 2 different championship games his senior year, one for football and one for basketball. And that took, packing and gearing up for it and talking with Gus about everyone reminding him it's his last year, so you better make it your best memories. And there's just like this pressure outside of himself and then within himself too about his senior year. And the girls were so kind to us and to Gus. They wrapped themselves around him. They wrestled him. They cheered him up when he needed to be cheered up. They helped me in the kitchen. They helped me pack. They helped me set up for the grad party. They just really poured in a lot of effort of launching Gus into the next stage. And so I wanted to recognize that. And we took a trip to the Black Hills to Black Elk Peak. It used to be called Harney Peak, and it's the tallest one in South Dakota. It's a lot of effort to climb this mountain, but I wanted to have the time. I think it's 3 hours on the way up and maybe an hour down, but it's a significant hike. And we visited the whole way up and talked about the year. We didn't necessarily talk about Gus. We just talked about the year, what kind of changes it meant for Ivy. She changed schools. What changes happened for Rosie as she says goodbye to her building. She's a 5th and 6th grade. We talked about Pix, and she had a year where she had a brand new school because her elementary school closed. So there was a lot to unpack, and I wanted to make sure to recognize the effort that they went to for themselves personally, struggle also, but also the effort that they poured into things and how they were so kind and sweet to both Nick and I and Gus. And so that was a fantastic trip. It was really fun. And it was a really great way of just recognizing the effort. Now, that being said, the conversations didn't cost me a dime. Telling them I'm so grateful for all the effort you poured into. Yes, the trip cost, but the actual conversations didn't. And that's where the precious gold came from, is having these conversations and recognizing it. It was a surprise. They didn't know what was happening. And so I got lots and lots of big hugs and thank yous because they were like, yeah, we actually did pour a lot into that year. And so it was just a really good trip to recognize the effort that they had poured into that year. So in your family system and in recognizing effort, both in yourself and with your family members, I want you to reflect on these questions. Ask yourself, did you stay patient today? Because that requires effort. Maybe it's, did you get all of the lunches packed? That requires some effort. Did you write down everybody's schedule on the family calendar? That requires a lot of effort. Maybe you said no to something hard. You said, nope. Not today, or maybe you said yes to something hard. I want you to reflect on, how did you show effort today and recognize it? And here's some questions to ask a family member. Who in your family is trying, even if it's not perfect, but you know that they're trying? Maybe it's your toddler putting on their socks. That's a lot of effort. Maybe it's your teen eventually cleaning up their room. You've seen some tiny efforts. Maybe it's your daughter really pulling out the book to start reading it, and just pulling out the book was a lot of effort. Maybe it was your spouse offering to do bedtime after a long day. Where can you recognize effort in your family members and tell them? That doesn't cost a dime. You can just give them a great big hug. But say the words. Maybe you don't want to say the words, and that's totally permission to do that too. But just saying, man, I saw that you got that book out today. Or I saw that you were stuck in the bin, cleaning out the bin right before harvest, and you also did bedtime. That was huge. Recognize the efforts in your family member. It will bring you closer and connect you on a level you didn't know was possible when you're recognizing effort. These are some words you can use, but I always give you guys permission to just, when you're reflecting on this, what are the words that come to you? And what are the words that God is impressing upon your heart? Ask him, give me direction, give me the words. Here's what I like to say. Hey, I see you trying. I see you trying over there. The girls know I say this frequently. I'll be like, oh, I see you. We say that a lot. And it's a connection point. Even though we've turned it into kind of humorous, it's, I see you. I see you trying. And then one question you could ask at supper time would be, what are you working on? because that allows you insight to know what they're pouring effort into. Hey, what are you working on? I like to do this with my friends too, but since we're talking about the family system today, that's a great one to open up conversation about. Hey, what are you working on? Okay, second category, recognize triumph. Now, normally this one's pretty easy, right? It's like, oh, you get a trophy, you get a ribbon, you get a bonus, whatever that looks like. But I want to give you permission that triumph doesn't have to be big and flashy. It can be small. It can be just a personal reward that you are recognizing in yourself or a family member. I have a story to tell you about state basketball, again, during Gus's senior year, that was so monumentous with so many different feelings. And it was, for whatever reason, God just really gave us a picturesque point to recognize the effort, the struggle, and the triumph that Gus and our family had been through. We got to go to 2 state championships, like I mentioned. The Brandon Valley Lynx got to go to the football championship, and we got second place. And so there was, all the feelings of that, these boys working their entire season up into that, and then coming home with second place and the tears that rolled out from that, but also still really, really, really amazing, right? And Gus loves football. He's playing college football right now. Whoop, whoop, go Big Blue. That has just been a blessing, and he loves football. So to watch the struggle with getting second was tough, but he was able to recognize, man, the triumph of even getting the championship was pretty cool. And then his basketball team also got to go to the state championship. And that was a whole different team and dynamics because Gus was the scout team and I don't know if they call him the backup team, but he didn't get a lot of playing time. And he's a senior, so they have to be on varsity. They don't get to play JV. Gus still got some playing time, and we're grateful for that. But it was a lot of lessons of being humble and still working hard in practice, knowing full well you won't get a lot of minutes during a game. I do want to say this because I'm a mother. Gus is really good. He's really good. But we're in a large school and there's lots of really good players. So I think he deserved and certainly worked hard to get more playing time, but just didn't work out like that. So we both learned a lot, like what you want for your child, what you think they deserve is just sometimes different from the coach's point of view or whatever. And so I have no doubt that God was hovering and teaching me and my husband and my child a lot about things that are outside of our control, but what we can do in our own hearts, in our own character for integrity and showing up and doing our best. So that being said, the game was amazing. It was one of those games where we're like, is it going to be 1 or 2 point lead? It ended up being a 5-point lead. I saw Gus jump 10 feet in the air on the bench as he's squealing that they are in fact going to win this. There was so many seconds left and there's no way the team could come back. And he did get some playing time. And then we rushed down on the floor and gave him this big hug because the Brandon Valley Lynx won the championship game. This makes me emotional because it was just such a moment that I think God wanted me to experience and remember for a lifetime. And I will certainly remember that. The whole crowd is there, so it's hard to find your player. And they're cheering one another on, of course, and all their classmates and their teammates. And the whole state was on the other side of the state here in South Dakota. And so looking for him was an effort in itself. And then when we found Gus, I gave him this great big hug. And Nick happened to be close too, which was an act of God as well, that he was right within this huge crowd. And so I will post this picture on Instagram so you see it because it's just one of those once in a lifetime shots. Nicholas hugged him from behind and I hugged him in the front. And we just held each other and all 3 of us were crying. I think because of the effort he'd poured in to the year, and I think we were even processing the football season was extremely stressful and extremely difficult because of a testimony that I'm hoping, you've heard me say it before, that Gus will share someday about what happened. But I have to let him be the one that talks about it. And as we held each other, there's a light in the picture that's hovering up above in the gym, and it has beams shining down. I kid you not, the shot looks like God was shining the light on our kid. And recognizing Gus's effort and triumph and struggle right there in that moment. And he was so elated and I think relieved all those thoughts. And then the girls found us eventually and joined in on the hug, but we did happen to capture that moment of real triumph for this kiddo. We realized after the championship too, they had this little post rally where we got together with the families to recognize all the effort and stuff by the senior boys and by the team. Gus was one of, I think it was only 8 kids in the entire huge high school, that had managed to do 3 sports for 4 years. And that is a fantastic triumph. That meant a lot. And the superintendent also called out Gus in front of the crowd and said, "This is our Brandon Valley enforcer." And that's a good word for Gus. Like, it was such a sweet recognition because, of course, Nick and I could recognize that. But for the superintendent to also say, like, it's really cool to see Gus on the bench cheering everybody on and really acting as the enforcer, like, you go out there and you do this. And the coach said, if the bench is quiet, he starts yelling at Gus, because if Gus is yelling, the boys are involved. And so that was also a sweet little note. So when you are recognizing triumph in your family system, I want you to ask yourself first, let's recognize it in yourself, okay? Did you do something well today that no one noticed? And what is that? Write it down. Maybe record a little voice memo to a friend. Maybe give yourself a little gold star and then celebrate it. I mean, we're talking like, even if it's you folded a mountain of laundry, or you finally figured out how to fix your AirPods. This obviously is on my list. Like, where did you experience triumph today? It doesn't have to be a trophy, a ribbon, an occurrence. It could be the small things in our everyday home system that, man, there's some moments in there where I really feel triumphant. What does that look like for you? Ask yourself, where did you see triumph today? And then ask your family members, what small win could you celebrate with them today? Take a look at the child's day. Hey, did they pass a test today? Hey, did they survive a hard day? That's a triumph right there. Did you know it was a hard day? And you can say to them at the end of the day, you survived it. And we were right here. And Jesus was hovering so close to you. Like, that is a triumph in itself. Did you get out of the door without tears today? Were they able to put their shoes on without getting super frustrated? What are the tiny triumphs or the large triumphs that you can celebrate just by recognizing it? It doesn't even require a gift, a word, or anything. Just recognizing the triumph is a fantastic way to connect within your families. And number 3, recognize struggle. This one is probably a little bit easier for all of us to recognize when we just know it, but sometimes it's a little bit sneaky because it shows up in bad behavior rather than us recognizing, oh, wait, what is this child struggling with right now? So I have a personal story for myself and my business of a struggle that happened last year for my business, Rebecca Scott Designs. We sew and design handmade purses and accessories that are amazing. We use genuine leather for our 1948 collection, and it's really cool. I highly recommend you go check it out. But during that year, I was really struggling with how to keep my 2 employees. It was just been a really difficult year for sales, just a couple of years for sales. Now, I will still survive all the things, but those of you that are business owners out there too, it's a struggle sometimes. And I had 2 years of a real struggle with sales, and I was struggling with how to keep my 2 employees. Ultimately decided after lots of prayer and reflection and really looking at numbers that I couldn't in fact keep them if I wanted to sustain my business. And these were good friends of mine. So I had the initial conversations with them. They were very loving and very kind, gave them plenty of time to find jobs because they're amazing employees. And I knew that they would find fantastic situations, but that was a struggle. I mean, the amount of tears and hardships for myself and reflecting on how we got there and all the things that you're problem solving. Those of you that are business owners can totally relate to this. And then not only letting them go, but then having to have the conversations with other team members where they were in their positions. And we weathered it totally okay. And we're on the other side of it, and we're still friends, and we're still getting together for play dates even. But that was a huge struggle. And first of all, just really grateful for my spouse who heard me out during the struggle. But my family really did recognize that I was struggling. I got a few extra hugs. I got a few extra cup of teas. Even my 8-year-old at the time would brew tea and bring it to me when she knew mommy was having a tearful afternoon as I was just looking at numbers. Isn't that amazing? But my family really showed up in asking me how I was doing, including my extended family as well. And even my employees would say, how are you doing? Because they knew how hard the decision was for me also. But that was a struggle. So I want you to ask yourself something similar. What are you carrying right now that you haven't said out loud? I remember the exact moment when I was laying in bed and said to Nick, I think I have to let them go. that was a struggle just to say it out loud because I'd been brewing around it, knowing full well that would be the right decision. And then when I confessed it, it was like, okay, then I could come up with a plan and just letting Nick know that that's what I was struggling with. Ask yourself, what's weighing you down that needs to be named? Now, mine is a little bit more drastic of a story, but what for you personally do you just need to lay out there? I have another little minor story alongside this when it was a struggle. It was mid-August and the kids were bored because their activities had ended, but school hadn't yet started. And so it was very difficult to try and get my work system done with like productivity involved. Like it was just really hard to start something and stop, to answer questions, get snacks. They still had a few play dates in there, so there's still a few trips in there. It was just a struggle at the end of August, and they were bickering more often because they were kind of over the pool. They were over summer, I think, in some sense of the way. I know a lot of you are like, yep, that's like mid-August, right? And by the time I got to bed that night, I said to Nick, I need you just to listen. And I did what I recommend you guys do, is recognizing the struggle, is just vent. And it wasn't in a rageful way. It wasn't even, I don't even know if it was in a complaining way. It was just like, here's what a day looks like for me right now. And told him everything, how it was to try and write a podcast, how it was to try and fix a purse, sew a purse, deliver a purse, like all of the things. And Nick, right, because he's a big problem solver, which I adore most times. But this, I was like, you just need to listen. I don't know that you have any solutions. I just want you to understand what my day was like and what the past couple of weeks have been like as well. And Nick listened to it and he recognized the struggle. And the next day, Iverson woke up to her own alarm clock. I didn't have to wake her up, which I know I should not be doing, but you know. And sure enough, someone brought me sweet tea in the afternoon. So I don't know if me confessing, saying out loud that I was struggling, and also Nick recognizing that I was struggling, I think he had some mini conversations with our daughters about, hey, it's a lot for mom right now because everybody showed up to support me. And that was so amazing. Now, we're not perfect by any means. It lasted for a couple hours and then we were back in the bickering, but it was less. It was less because they could recognize, like, okay, mom's struggling. Let's all plug in together here. So I would ask your family members also, when you're going through some struggles and you're recognizing them, ask a family member and yourself, really, could this behavior be covering up a need or a hurt? Like if your child is misbehaving, do they need something that you haven't been able to provide lately? Maybe it's time, maybe it's physical touch, maybe it is a little trip to the ice cream. Like, is their behavior actually because they just want more time with you, or did something happen and they just haven't been able to say it out loud? Recognize if their behavior might be because of something you just need to recognize, a struggle in their life, and what's really going on beneath the surface. And if they are older and can understand that question, I have been able to ask Gus that, and Ivy at 15, like, hey, you're really overreacting to things. You're grumpy, you're pounding your feet. What's going on beneath the surface? And there is a moment of silence before they're ready to unload. Not always, believe me, they're teenagers. They have their own opinions, all those things. But in a moment of tenderness, I have every once in a while had them confess, more or less, not really confess, but be able to articulate what's actually going on and why the behavior is coming out. So as you're recognizing the struggle in yourself or your family members, some of the things that you can apply while they are confessing this, because there may not be anything that you can do about it, but just saying the phrase, that must have been hard, which is what Nick told me that night, is like, whoa, that was a hard day. I was like, yeah. It was a hard day. And teaching your kids to say, I'm having a hard day, is really easier to identify the struggle, even if they don't know the struggle, even if you can't put your finger on what they're struggling with because you just want to problem solve it. That doesn't always work that way, right? But just having them be able to say, I'm having a hard day, and then you just show grace and love and connection and care. You don't have to problem solve it, but allowing them and yourself to say, I'm having a hard day, is fantastic. And then we have to practice being present over fixing. Okay, I'm going to raise my hand here because I have to take deep breaths. You just have to sit in the hard. You just have to sit in it. I want to problem solve it immediately. That's just my nature. But I am practicing just being present. That must have been hard. Do you want a hug? Want me to just sit here? And a lot of the times I stopped using words because that just stirs it, And then my prayer underneath my breath all the time in the struggle for myself and for my family has been, God, go before me and hover. God, go before me and hover. hover, hover, hover. And that's like when they say just the name of Jesus is amazing. So if there's no words and it's just hard, just saying his name is edifying. Jesus. Jesus. Yes, Jesus. Think about the story from the Bible in John 11 with Jesus, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Remember, Jesus was late. He was a couple days late for Lazarus, who was a good friend. And Mary and Martha were busy grieving it and like, it's too late. And he didn't fix it, knowing full well he could. He didn't fix it for a while. What did he do? He sat with them. He grieved with them. He even wept, knowing full well he was going to resurrect him. But he sat with them first. He recognized the struggle. He recognized the struggle just by sitting with them and then relieved them of their grief by raising him. He just blessed them with presence, not just solutions. I think that's a really good illustration of like, nope, I'm just going to be here with you in the feelings. So when you're going through the struggle, so here's some reflective questions that you could do in the next 10 minutes of listening to this podcast to just really think about your family system that's living the legacy that you also want to leave behind by recognizing these three things: recognizing triumph, recognizing effort, and recognizing struggle. Who in your home needs to hear, I see you? You could do it in the funny way, or you could say, I see you. I see you. Who in your home needs to hear that today? Where can you give yourself more credit? Where can you say, I've been pouring a lot of effort into this. I have a triumph. I'm really struggling. Where can you do that for yourself today and give yourself more credit? Where might you be assuming bad behavior instead of recognizing that someone in your family might be struggling? If there is some bad behavior, wait, could they be struggling with something? And then also ask yourself, which is the easiest to recognize in others? Do you recognize effort, triumph, or struggle more? Because the one that you don't recognize, maybe you could ask yourself to provide a few little practical things to recognize the one that you're the least good at. So for me, it's very easy for me to recognize effort because I'm a productive person. So I'm like, ooh, that requires a lot of effort. Awesome job. I love your effort, blah, 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 right? Triumph is harder for me as well because I don't tend to stick around for the triumph because I'm like, what's the next thing? That's not good. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's good, but I need to be better at recognizing triumph because I also like to improve everything. And so I'm like, ooh, that was great. Good job. How could we improve it for the next time? No. I need to be better at just recognizing triumph and just being in that. And struggle. Are you really good at recognizing struggle? Struggle to me always seems to be a little bit sneakier because it's just bad behavior. So like, well, they're a teenager or well, they're frustrated with their reading chapters or whatever it is. So struggle, I have to work at recognizing it so that it doesn't turn into a full-blown attack of something. So ask yourself, which is the easiest for you to recognize and how can you be better at recognizing all three? Just in a manner of saying, I see you pouring effort. I see the triumph that you had. I see the struggle that you're going through. Because when we can recognize these three things and just know a lot of things fall in these three categories, we can connect on a deeper level with our family, making us feel more safe and, again, more connected within our family systems. I did create a resource on theencouragerpodcast.com. It's the teenager template. We'll link it here in the show notes and we'll put it on our social media Instagram this week. It's a PDF of a conversation that you can fill out yourself about your teenagers. And it is all about seeing them where they are. So it's calling out the things from their childhood, what you see them developing right now, what you maybe see them struggling with, where they've had some triumph. And I created this long before I wrote this podcast, but it's a fantastic resource for your teenager to see and read that you are paying a lot of attention to their effort, their struggles, and their triumphs. So I do recommend go get that resource and fill that out. You could do that for sure within the first 10 minutes after you listen to this podcast. It's just a really good one. You'll need to spend some time reflecting on it for each child, but I have found it to be really awesome for my children as I have filled it out. In the family system, being seen is sometimes the very thing that keeps us going. Let's be people who notice, who name it, who pause and say, I see your effort, I see your win, and I see your heart. It's one of the simplest ways we can reflect God's heart, the God who sees us. Until next time, encouragers, we got this because He's got us. Thanks so much for tuning in. If the Encourager podcast has helped or encouraged you in any way, please subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star review. And then help us spread the message of encouragement and hope by sharing the podcast with others. Hey, Encouragers, are you tired of juggling home and work life without dropping the ball or your joy? The Encourager cohort is back, and we start September 3rd. This 10-week coaching program is designed for Christian women who want to harmonize home and work with systems that actually stick. We'll meet weekly, walk through the 5 systems, me, food, home, work, and family, and build rhythms that bring peace, not pressure. Join the women who are ready to stop the chaos and start simplified systems. Sign up now at encourageacademy.com.